I couldn't describe anything that's more of a true pick'em fight. I mean, they went 1-1. They both had moments in both fights. This is one bet I'm staying away from, except as I always say, if I'm up at the end of the night and I've got a little money to play with, then I might lean one way. But I'm just wondering who you think's going to win this fight, or if you have a strong inclination.
Yeah, I mean, it's like one of those things. I'm like, don't watch the countdown specials, because whoever I think's gonna win before I watch it, I usually change my mind based on the fact, my own thoughts. Going into the first fight, I think that Stipe really underestimated Cormier's power. I think he looked, because I've stood next to Stipe and stood next to Daniel Cormier. I'm bigger than Daniel Cormier. I'm taller than him, and I look like I'm in better shape. And I'm not in great shape, and I'm not very tall. But so I think that Stipe, after fighting guys like Ngannou and Overeem and these huge, JDS. I mean, even when the one loss, JDS. I mean, even Stefan Struve was enormous guy. I think he looked at DC and said, all right, this is gonna be an easier fight for me. Just watch out for the wrestling. Mm-hmm. And when he got hit, he got eye poke too. They left the eye poke out of the countdown. I think that also changed the fight drastically. But I think he did not expect to get hit like that. Mm-hmm. He didn't know how hard this dude hits, and it was a huge wake up call for him. I think he looked at Stipe and going, this guy's a 205 pounder. John Jones walked through a lot of these shots. I'm a lot bigger than John Jones. Maybe he was believing his own height. The second fight, I think he fought a terrible fight. I mean, the first couple of rounds, he looked awful. And Stipe is a Golden Glove boxer. I mean, he's a legitimate, he won the Golden Gloves. He's a really good boxer, and he's getting lit up on his feet by a guy who's not known for his striking. Now, round 4 and 5 is when he turned it up. But like his coach said, he was stuck. Now, I think Stipe is going to win this fight, because I think he knows now that he can get rocked. He knows he can get hurt, and now he also knows this guy doesn't have his number. I think when you lose to somebody, and you get knocked out in the back of your head, you're like, this guy's got my number, And I think that now he knows, I can beat this dude. It's not the boogeyman's out. Now Cormier. Now that being said, that was until I watched the special. Then I watched the special, and they go, all right, Daniel Cormier got no distractions. He's not coaching wrestling. He's not doing MMA events every weekend. He's not doing press. So I'm like, maybe, because Stipe looked ripped recently. He looked like he slimmed down. He looks ripped. So I'm like, Stipe's got this. But if DC's taking this serious too, as much as his coaches are saying, I'm like, it's going to be closer than I think. I still think Stipe wins. I think that Cormier is, when you start talking about your retirement fight, a lot of times you got one foot out the door. And also DC is a guy that he's never come one time in his career has he ever come from behind and won a fight. And that was against Anthony Johnson, where he just got fucking rocked, came back and won. But every time he loses, which is not many times, but against John Jones, he can't come back. And I think momentum-wise, I think this was a wake-up call to him. And I know he says he's going to wrestle, but I think Stipe's got the confidence that he lost, and I think DC lost the confidence that he had.
One time, and he wasn't definitely losing the fight, but the Gustafsson fight, DC took a really, really big knee. I remember, because I always remember the shot that he took from Gustafsson with that knee, and then the shot he took from Rumble are the two big, those are just proof of his chin. It's just. But he was winning that fight. Yeah. Before he got the knee. For sure. I'm saying when he's loses the first or second round, and that. So I don't know. I mean, I think Stipe wins. I do. Something tells me Stipe wins. But would it shock me? I mean, I was surprised in the second fight how good DC was looking on his feet. I mean, talk about a guy who's overextending himself. I mean, he's doing 20 things right now. Yeah.
I mean, he's still coaching high school wrestling while he's the champion.
He's an absolute workhorse in and out of the cage. I'm glad because I'm kind of leaning DC only because it seemed like he had the game plan in the second fight to win, and it was more But the gassing also came from Stipe because Stipe was hitting the body. But I felt like it was more that he gassed that Stipe was able to take control. And I just think if he comes in motivated and cardio was like the number one thing, that would be the difference. And if you would have agreed with me, maybe I convinced myself to put some money down. But the fact that we disagree, I'm going to stay away. No one can tell.
I mean, you got a point. Look, I mean, it was like sort of like he lost the fight versus Stipe won the fight, right? And like that's a great argument to make. But Stipe also looked terrible in that fight. I mean, the beginning 2 rounds, I mean, he looked like he wasn't moving his feet at all, and I think he was in his head.
And even in the corner, he looked kind of like demoralized. I literally have the fight on behind me. I watched it Saturday. I'm watching it again. Like he looked like he was not. He didn't want to be there, but he says he's like excited to fight and stuff. So DC's supposed to be the one with one foot out the door. It's just who could tell. But this is why like. Everybody wants to have an opinion, but like you just have to enjoy the sport. We're about to watch a heavyweight trilogy. When does this happen? This doesn't happen.
No, look, I'd be happy with both. I'd be happy with the draw because I like both guys. I mean, DC. I mean, while he was a little bit more accessible before he became a champion, he definitely, he's a great guy. Like I remember texting him, "Do you want to be in this All About the Cake video?" Him leaving the thing, text me going, "What the hell just happened?" And then it got 50 million hits, and his kids loved it. But here's a guy that like, I think he lost a family member, a daughter, I believe, when he was he's a guy that always came up second. I mean, he was in college wrestling. He lost to Cael Sanderson, who was arguably the best wrestler of all time by like 2 points in the national finals. Who was a 4-time national champion, this guy Cael. Then he went to the Olympics, and he didn't place the first time. Second time he didn't compete because he got like
the weight cut kidney
he had
stuff.
a weight problem. Then he loses to John Jones, who's the greatest fighter of all time. And Jones pops for steroids and cocaine. So you got to put asterisks next to those wins, but it does seem like Jones has his number, right? So I was so happy when he beat Stipe. Like he's a guy that like you can't help but like root for and love, and he's a great role model, and he's great. But then again, like, so is Stipe. This dude's a fucking fireman.
Fireman, family man.
While the UFC champion. I mean, how many people could say they're the champion of the world? And because I remember like writing him to like a Zoom comedy show, and he's like, "Yeah, man." It's like 3 weeks ago. He's like, "I'll put it on the station. The boys will love it." Like, this is the kind of dude he is. So it's like you want both of them to win. There's really no villain in this situation.
Yeah. Now I just got really excited. They're great guys, great ambassadors for the sport, and I love like how much attention UFC is getting during this like slow sports time, what have you, and like what better fight to have on kind of in the middle of it.